Hi guys! So first of all, thank you so much for all the beautiful messages we've received on our last YouTube video as well as on Instagram and Facebook. We've both been inundated with really nice messages and yeah, we're really excited. So I mean, obviously from the title of this video you know that it's all about our IVF story. So we are expecting, I am due around about the second week of December, and so right now as we're filming this I'm just over 15 weeks pregnant, and it's so weird to say that I'm pregnant. I'm still not used to it. Just being pregnant or saying that I'm pregnant was just not something that I get to do. Like, I don't know, you just get so used to all your friends and everyone else around you at our age, we're well into our 30s, to be having babies and having their seconds and sometimes having their thirds. Yeah, the time didn't come for us until now. So first of all, we're Australian, so this is from an Australian perspective. Also, it's obviously just our own journey, so we can only speak for our own journey. Everyone's journey is different, everyone's experience is different. We're obviously not medical professionals, so we're just, you know, sharing with you what we went through and what we remember. Our journey to trying to become parents started in 2017. So Phil and I went on a trip to Croatia. The plan was that when we came back from that Europe trip, that would be the last big trip, and we would then start trying. The time kind of went by quite quickly without us really realizing, and because we never really kept track, I think we tried for, I only have realized now that we've tried for a lot longer than I thought we did. I was not mentally prepared for what was to come in that appointment. I really didn't think that we had infertility issues yet at that point. But we went into that appointment and he was looking at the results and he was like, so I remember him saying, the only reason why you're having trouble conceiving is because you have low AMH. And then he explained what that was. And that basically means that I was born with a lower egg reserve. Don't quote me on that, Google it yourself. So that's why we were having trouble conceiving, so the issue was with me. And then he said, your options are IUI, which is XYZ, or IVF, but I would recommend that you just go straight to IVF because, you know, in your situation, and I am paraphrasing, obviously we haven't recorded this exact conversation. From what I remember, he said, you know, in your situation, it could be a waste of time to do IUI because you could do a few cycles and it may not work, and then you would have to go to IVF anyway. So you may as well go straight to IVF because the chances of success are higher. And you know, what you want is to fall pregnant, and so that's your best chances at this happening. And I just remember my brain not really processing everything he was saying, and I was just thinking, hang on, IVF, that's for other women with infertility issues or other couples. I didn't think that I would be someone that has to go through IVF. And to me also, I didn't have much exposure to it at that point, so all I knew about it was that it's this big scary fertility treatment. I just had all these negative thoughts about IVF, and I had also heard of stories of other couples, you know, doing 20 cycles and it's still not happening. And I remember saying that to him, and he said, I would never take you for a ride like that, and if I know it's not going to work, then I will tell you. And so that somewhat put my mind at ease. So we all know that women have a body clock. Basically my body clock is ticking faster and started way earlier, and I just didn't know that. And it is really hard when people around you are always asking, oh, when are you having kids? Or the one I hate the most is, when is it your turn? And I think that's such a stupid question.
Because obviously we've been married for quite a while now, quite a few years, and you know, when people normally get married, next stage is have kids.
We had to deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I hated going to like events where you do see lots of people like, you know, at weddings and birthdays and
baby showers
and all of that. You always get asked these questions. I really feel like it's important for everyone to understand that unless they are a very close friend of yours and you feel like you can talk to them about such personal matters, it's not your business and you shouldn't ask. You just don't know what's happening in people's lives. So I just think that everyone needs to be a lot more sensitive about these personal questions that they ask. So the doctor said, go on your trip and, you know, we can start afterwards. And basically there's all this paperwork you need to do. You need to do a police check. You've got to do all of that before you can start anyway. You've got to go through counselling. It's compulsory counselling. So then it was just like we went into overdrive to try and get everything done before we went away so that when we came back we could start straight away. Because by then I was like, okay, let's do it. We're going to do it. I just want to start as soon as I can.
It's obviously, you know, a large sum of money for each part and each cycle and each part of the process. So that also was a big consideration for us as well, because obviously that changes everything in terms of, you know, the savings, what we had plans going on.
I honestly think that because it costs that much money, that is a big reason why it's so stressful. If it didn't cost that much money, then there wouldn't be so much pressure on that cycle working, because you might not have enough money for another cycle. So we went on our trip. We had an amazing time. I honestly didn't think too much about, you know, starting IVF. Like, we just had a good time. So we came back and we started. We collected our injections. We went through, you know, the nurse went through how to use it and everything. And I was actually the most scared. The whole thing that, in terms of IVF, I was the most scared about the injections. I was thinking, can't believe we have to do injections every night, every day, and we've got to do it ourselves. That part really freaked me out, and it turns out that part really was no big deal now that I've gone through it. Obviously that's my experience. What you need to do to start is you need to wait for your period to come, and then it's the day 2 of your cycle, which is day 2 is considered as your like day 2 of a heavy flow. And so on day 2, that's when you start your IVF cycle. I was on 6 days of Pergoveris, and then on day 8 of the cycle, we introduced Orgelutran as well, and then as well as continuing on Pergoveris. So just to talk about the injections. So like I said, I was like terrified of them, and I decided from the get-go that I was not going to do them and that Phil was going to do them for me, because I mean, hats off to all those women that do it themselves. I could never be that. I literally never injected myself, because like, you're so scared about the injection already. Like, how do you even then do it yourself? I just don't know how people do that. So I'm very grateful that you were able to do that for me.
So I had no choice. I had to step up and take it. And I think the very first cycle and learning to use these injections was quite stressful for me, because I knew that I was the one that's going to be doing the injections every day. So I had to pay attention. I had never sort of used a needle and inject someone before. And
when the nurse shows you when you collect the injections, they do show you quite quickly. And to be honest, at all of those appointments, I'm not even listening. I can't process. I don't know what's going on. And I'm just hoping that Phil knows what he's doing and that he's listened. So I left it all to him. But I remember that very first injection, we were both so terrified that I remember we started laughing. I don't know if you remember that.
No,
but I remember we were both so scared. I was scared of the injection itself. He was scared that he was going to do it wrong. That it was just funny, and it turned out It was funny, but it didn't hurt. And then I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. So we finished injections on day 10 of the cycle. Day 11 was when we did the trigger. Oh, I remember the trigger was really stressful because they tell you that you've got to do it at an exact time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when you've never been through it before and you don't know what you're doing, you think it's got to be to that second. And I remember we were ready for it, but then something happened. Oh yeah, we were ready for it. And then when you went to do it, like you realized the needle wasn't quite right or something.
That's when we were stressed out because they're like, you have to be on the dot, sharp.
Yeah, so we were about like 2 or 3 minutes delayed. And I was like, everything you do stresses you out. And you end up Googling everything. You Google, everything that you're unsure of. Which sometimes is helpful because other people have been through the same thing, or sometimes it freaks you out because, you know, it's something scary. But yeah, it was fine.
0. We did it, babe. You okay?
2 minutes past.
You were telling me it was 8:02.
And then we had egg collection. So you go into hospital and it's a day procedure. So they give you general anesthetic, and it's the best thing ever because you literally get knocked out and then you wake up. It's like you've blinked and, you know, I don't know, an hour's gone by or something. It is quite a quick procedure. I remember being really drowsy and I was like, I think I asked the nurse, oh, are we done? Is it finished? Like, it's just, general anesthetic is bloody amazing. And so they tell you how many eggs they've collected. They told me 9 eggs were collected. I felt fine, like super fine after the retrieval. They tell you to take the day off work and to take it easy and not to do any physical labor or anything. I literally felt like I could have gone back to work. I felt completely normal. It might have been because we only collected 9 eggs, I'm not sure. But yeah, there was basically no recovery required from that egg retrieval because I was fine. Then the next day they call you and they tell you how many eggs had been fertilized.
So now, as you are aware, we did collect 9 eggs at your collection yesterday.
Yep.
Following on from that, 3 have successfully fertilized this morning. Okay?
Okay. Is there like a percentage success rate of them like surviving to day 5?
Can obviously get a lot of variation on that one, but generally we look for 1 out of 4 to go on to that blastocyst stage.
Oh,
Why? Sure.
3 is really low.
That's still good.
Well, she said 1 out of 4. We don't even have 4.
But still there's a chance of 1.
Yeah, but it's a very low starting number.
That's okay. All we need is 1. Or maybe we'll end up with like 2, then we can save 1 for later.
Unlikely with those numbers.
No, never know.
That's such a low number. Yeah, but she said 1 out of 4. We don't have 4.
Yeah, but still.
So our chances are even lower.
Just a little bit lower.
I know that the numbers diminish at every stage, and so 3 was really a terrible, very low number, and so I was quite low about that already. Then transfer day came.
Is that going to make you pee?
Oh yeah. And they said you ended up with 1 morula, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it's basically an equivalent to like a 3 to 4 day embryo. So what they want is a 5 day, which is, in other words, a blastocyst. And they will keep all your blastocyst embryos, and if you have any left over, they freeze it. And so we were always sort of under this impression that we would have a few, but we didn't, and we only had 1 morula, which wasn't even a blastocyst. And so they said, we can still transfer this, and we will still transfer this because there's still a chance. Basically chances were really low, and this was our only chance at this working. So things weren't looking good. I also remember at this transfer, straight after the transfer, which by the way is quite a very quick and easy procedure. It's kind of like just getting a pap smear, but it takes a bit longer. Straight after the transfer, the doctor said to me, so if this doesn't work, the best thing to do is to start stimulating straight away. And, you know, that's how we'll get better results, blah, blah, blah. So in other words, he was already talking about if this fails, we're going to do this. And so...
And go straight into it.
Yeah. And so, you know, my headspace didn't want to be there. I just wanted to think that this was going to work. Plus, because it cost so much money, we kind of thought we only had enough money for one cycle. But anyway, we did the transfer, and then after that you need to wait 2 weeks to find out if your embryo has implanted and whether or not you're pregnant. And that 2 weeks is a really long 2 weeks. And I remember throughout this first cycle, basically my headspace was just like every day, just like begging and praying to God that it would work. Like, please, 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 please. I was just in this mindset of just like absolutely begging to God that it would work. Then my birthday came around on June 17, and it was a great day. And then we went out to dinner, and then I remember I started spotting, but I had read about implantation spotting, which is when you are pregnant. And I thought maybe this is implantation spotting. So I wasn't upset about it yet at that point. I was kind of still quite hopeful. Then the next day, the spotting pretty much turned into a period. And it wasn't like full flow yet, but it was quite obvious that it was turning into a period. So I contacted the nurse and told them, and they said, you can do your blood test early. So my blood test, I think I still had like 4 days to go to confirm for that 2 week period, to confirm whether or not I was pregnant. And so the nurse said, yeah, you can do your blood test early. And I remember I was at work already at that point, and I panicked, and I was like, I need to find this pathology slip. And so I messaged Phil, and I was like, can you just email me that pathology slip, and I'll just leave work now because I need to get it done before 10 a.m. to get the results today. And it was really stressful. And so Phil emailed me something. He emailed me a pathology slip, but it wasn't the right one, which I didn't know at that point. Neither of us knew at that point. And then I went to get this blood test, and it was such a terrible, just terrible feeling knowing this pretty much hasn't worked. And then I went home after that and worked from home. And then it got to like 3:30 in the afternoon or something. So it was a really long wait. And the nurse called and said, we've got your result, but you didn't do the right blood test. It was like some other blood test I had to do at some point. And so obviously I had printed out the wrong one, used the wrong one. And so it was like, what? Like, I can't even confirm that this hasn't worked. Like, it's just the worst when you have to keep waiting and waiting. And then they said, oh, but the good news is they can use that same blood test,
same sample
to work out whether or not you are pregnant, but you won't find out the result till tomorrow. And I said, okay, fine. By that point though, my period had pretty much come, and I knew it hadn't worked. So I was already like, I had already resigned to the fact that it hadn't worked, and I was really, really upset. I remember crying a lot. And yeah, the next day they called to confirm that it didn't work, but I already knew that it didn't work. And so it was already like, okay, so how do we start another cycle? And so we kind of just like pulled our money together and decided, yeah, well, we have to keep going and do another cycle.
The hope that you have to pull up during that time when you're waiting, and then obviously if the result doesn't go your way, which didn't go our way the first time, you get disappointed, you get shattered, but then you gotta basically turn around and pick yourself up again to go through cycle number 2. If you go through cycle number 2, which we decided we were gonna go into straight away. So that's where I first really felt, okay, this emotional roller coaster is real. It happens really quick, and you just gotta do it. So I know, like, you know, I was super upset, and Joe was as well, but I just needed to be strong, I guess, and just go through. And yeah, so we decided to go to the second cycle.
And straight away, because that's what the doctor had recommended. He said if you just keep stimulating, and your body will get used to the stimulation, and you'll produce better results. I'm paraphrasing, I'm totally paraphrasing, but that is the gist of what he was saying. So it's like one day you're grieving, the next day you got to pick yourself up and keep going, and that's what it was like. So then we started our second cycle, and I was on different medication this time. So instead of the Pegoveris, I was on Menopur, as well as Orgalutran, so that hadn't changed. And bloody hell, Menopur hurt for me. It really hurt, and I've heard for others it hasn't. So I think it's just like the way your body reacts. But I remember it really hurt, and you can feel the medication go into you, and then you can feel it stinging inside of you for like another few minutes. But I mean, the positive to that is, like, if it hurts, it only hurts for a few minutes max, and then you're fine. So it really isn't that bad. I don't know if that made anyone feel any better.
And it was a completely new needle setup as well. So that was another type of needle that I had to learn. I think that one was the one where you had to put together, where you had to mix liquids and so on and put together. With that, gave me a bit more added stress to get it right, because then obviously in the pamphlets they always have disclaimers that, you know, if you do this wrong, you need to check this out, blah blah blah. So that was that additional stress. But yeah, once we got used to it, it was fine, but it was just another thing to learn, another thing to pay attention and sort of like not stuff it up.
So Menopur hurt so much that I remember sometimes I would stand up for Phil to inject me, but I actually couldn't stand up with this one. I had to sit down because I would be trembling so much from the pain that I had to just sit down. So that's how much it hurt. So sorry if you have to get Menopur. I think I was really fortunate that all the medication that I went through didn't have really an effect on my body. I didn't get emotional, I didn't put on weight, or I didn't sort of have any of those side effects. So I was really, really fortunate in that way. The timings were similar to the first cycle, except after my scan with my doctor, instead of him confirming when my egg collection would happen, he actually said, your eggs are not mature enough yet. You need to keep simulating and then come back for another scan in a couple of days. And so that was the difference there. So this time after the egg collection, they told me that they had collected 16 eggs, and that was more than the number of follicles that they had counted at my last scan. I don't remember how many, it might have been 14. And so It was a massive number, and so much better than the first cycle. And on top of that, like, I felt so different to the first egg collection, because by then I was like, oh, egg collection is easy. And like, I've watched all these other videos of other women go through egg collection, and you know, they're really struggling with pain and all of that. And I was just like, okay, I guess that doesn't happen to me. But the second time it did. I was in so much pain, I could barely walk. I had to have a heat pack on me, like, at all times. It was really, really hard. Like, I think for at least one whole week, I pretty much couldn't walk. And then the second week I was a lot better, but I'd still have to walk really slowly. So yeah, the recovery was really different. I'm gonna assume it's probably because they collected a lot more eggs out of me this time.
Providing you with an update on your fertilization results.
Yep.
So now, as you are aware, following on from your procedure yesterday, we did collect 16 eggs.
Yep.
And today, 13 of those have fertilized normally.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So yeah, really happy with that result for you.
So this time 13 fertilized, so it was so much better. It was like completely different. We had planned to do a fresh transfer, but my body was actually for whatever reason, I can't remember the medical reason why, but they couldn't do a fresh transfer. So they said that they would have to freeze. And basically by the end, we ended up with 9 blastocysts. And I remember the first cycle, we ended up with 0 blastocysts. So this was like an amazing result. We were so happy. I remember in this cycle, I had changed my mindset because I'd heard from a sermon at church once where the person preaching said, if you are begging God for something, then you are blaming him for it. And so that really hit home for me, and I think that will like stay with me forever. So I changed my perspective completely, and instead of praying like, God, please, 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 it was more, thank you for this child you're going to give us, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And so my perspective had completely changed. My prayers had completely changed. I also had this mindset that it was going to work, and I was just sure of it.
Yeah, especially with a good result, we were feeling quite positive for this cycle.
Yeah, and so while this was happening, unexpectedly, this other job just came up, and at that point I wasn't enjoying my existing job anymore, and I was thinking, do I go for this job? But we're right in the middle of IVF. Like it's kind of stupid to even be thinking about it. And you know, the IVF thing is our priority. I wasn't looking. My old manager had sent it to me, and I was also thinking about the fact that this company would offer paid maternity leave, which my existing company didn't have any paid maternity leave policies. And so I thought, I'll go for it, see what happens. And then if I do get the job, then it's obviously from God. And, you know, because I couldn't actually do a fresh transfer and all our blastocysts were frozen, we actually did have the choice of putting this on hold. So it really felt right. And I did get the job, and I accepted it. And then we obviously then put things on hold again because of, you know, how you have to be employed for 12 months. And so we waited a few months, and it was kind of nice to have that break, and nice having the break, but knowing that you have 9 blastocysts, like that was a really good feeling. He looked at how many blastocysts we had, and he saw that we had 9, and he said, oh, you should do PGS testing, which we had considered previously, but it does cost a lot of money to do it. And also because in the first cycle, we only ended up with 1 morula, that we didn't need to do PGS testing. You just transfer and just hope that it works. So PGS testing is when they test your embryos to see if they're normal or not normal. I don't want to get into explaining exactly what that means. But basically, if you transfer a normal embryo, you increase your chances of it implanting than transferring an embryo that is not normal. So rather than just like picking an embryo out of a hat, you actually are choosing, you know, your good ones, basically. So we went down the path of PGS testing, and it turned out that it would take 3 months for that whole process anyway, which would take us to December. And so we did the PGS testing, and out of the 9, so the doctor had predicted that you end up with about half that are normal. We ended up with 4, although one of them is a mosaic. So we were planning to transfer in December, but then realized because of the Christmas shutdown, we weren't actually able to do it in December. And then we couldn't transfer it in January either because we had a family trip planned. And so that was really shattering for me, because I had this mindset for a while now that we were going to do the transfer in December. And you know, when you're going through IVF or when you're trying to fall pregnant, the more waiting you have to go through, it's just crap. You just want it to be over and done with. And so then we realized that we couldn't transfer till February, which was like, you know, another wait. So February would take us to 7 months after our second egg collection. So that is a really long time to wait in between. So on the 20th of February, we transferred an embryo, and this was like a textbook perfect embryo. It was a hatching embryo.
So
So transfer is done. This is baby. So one day we can tell him or her that this is what they looked like. Yeah, so we transferred that, and I still had this very positive mindset that this is it. You know, I believe that it's going to work. And then, so then we got to blood test day and had my blood test, and then Phil was working all day. So he was at a shoot, and so I would have to find out my results on my own, and then also not be able to tell him till he came home. And so I think I actually called them at about 3:30 because they hadn't called yet. And then they had my result, and I was expecting it. I was really expecting it to be it. I was already kind of imagining how I would break the news to Phil when he came home.
The results of your test, can I just get are you able to listen to the result now?
Yep.
Yeah, I just get your name and your date of birth, please. Yeah, unfortunately it's negative today.
Okay.
Did you have any idea that it was that result, or you?
No.
No, you didn't know. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
What? Like, I remember just being like silent on the other end of the phone, and the nurse was like, did you have any idea? I was like, no. I didn't do any pregnancy tests because they recommend that you don't do that. And it was shattering. It was so shattering. And I just remember being really just like, I don't think I even cried. I think I just shut down, and I was just like, well, this is crap. And I couldn't tell Phil as well because he was still shooting. I didn't want to ruin his shoot. Like, I didn't want him to just read a message while he was working. And so then Phil didn't come home till like 8 o'clock that night or something. It was really late. And I also didn't want to tell anyone else at that point because I wanted Phil to be the first person to know. And so Phil walked in with like Tim Tams and flowers, like it was going to be a positive result. And then I had to tell him that it didn't work. And it was at that point that I cried. And the whole time beforehand, I didn't even cry yet. Yeah, and so I just remember like feeling like I have been so positive about this. I've, you know, had a heart full of faith, and yet it didn't work. And so I was really kind of annoyed and angry at God that it didn't work. But that's where I was at, and I couldn't even really pray because I was just like kind of broken by that point. But the good news was that this time we did have more embryos frozen, so we didn't have to go through that whole cycle from the start again. We could just transfer. So then we saw our doctor, and the doctor was like, that was really disappointing that it didn't work because, you know, it was a perfect embryo, so there must be a problem with the implantation. And so this time round, he got me to go on steroids, like a really low dose of steroids, so that my body wouldn't reject the embryo. And that would also lower my immune system. And I also had to go on a blood thinner, which was an injection. I was like, what? Injection? I thought I was done with injections. That one hurt, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another one that hurt. Oh, that one bruised me too.
Mm.
So then we went ahead with our next transfer.
So when we were on our way to have the transfer done, the nurse or the scientist called Joe saying, as we were thawing this embryo we were planning to transfer into you, it's dropped a few like grades, they call it, because they grade each of the embryo in terms of how good they are for transfer. So in the thawing process from the frozen embryo, it had dropped a couple of grades.
And it dropped to a C something.
Yeah, so, and then this was on our way to the transfer, and we're like, okay, so what's going on? So we went there, and
she called it a borderline. She said, "What? This is what we call a borderline embryo."
So I think that was a bit of a, downer for us, as in like, the chances have dropped, or it's a lower chance now because the grade's lower.
I just like didn't have that energy to really have that like faith and belief that it was definitely going to work this time, because I was just like broken after the second time, because the second time I was like so sure that it was going to work that it just I just didn't have that in me anymore. And I remember like I just, you know, sort of put it to the Holy Spirit and said, can you just pray for me, because I can't really do it. And that was kind of like my whole mindset the whole time. I was kind of too weak in my own mind, in my own flesh, to really like have that faith. And then a few days before my blood test date, I started to spot. And the first time that happened in my first cycle, it was not a good result. And it was actually, it was more than spotting. And I really felt like my period was coming. And that just broke me. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this again. I can't believe this is happening again. And I remember I had the most sleepless night. I just could not sleep at all. And then I remember thinking, that's it. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just going to do a pregnancy test, just to confirm that it hasn't worked, so that I can move on and, you know, get my closure, and I don't need to wait any longer to get this result. And so the next morning I did the pregnancy test. Phil was still in bed. I've done so many pregnancy tests. I think other women who are trying to fall pregnant may relate to this, but I've done so many pregnancy tests without Phil even knowing, because it's like, what's the point of this? Why would you have this whole build up to a pregnancy test when it's probably going to be a negative anyway, and then you don't want to both be disappointed. So you really play it down in your head and you think, I'm just going to do this test, you know, just in case or whatever. And then it's a negative and you throw it out and you just try and forget about it. Anyway, I did this test in the morning before Phil had even woken up. And it came back with 2 lines, and that is the first time I've ever seen 2 lines, and it was a strong 2 lines. It wasn't like a faint second line, it was strong. And so then I was really confused. And because I didn't know if it was because of, you know, the hormones that I was on or whatever, or if I was actually pregnant. But I remember coming back to bed and telling you and showing you. And then it's like, we had hope again. I called the nurse and I told them, and I asked them if I could do my blood test early, and they said that it was too early to do it. And they said, oh, just keep an eye on the spotting. And then the spotting kind of went away. The morning of the blood test, I did another pregnancy test because I just did not want, I didn't want a replay of that second time to like really find out from the phone call that it hadn't worked. I kind of wanted to confirm with myself first. So I did a pregnancy test again. It did come up with a second line, but it was fainter than the first time. So then that freaked me out. So then did the blood test, and then at about 3:30 that day, they called, but I was in a meeting, and so I didn't pick up. I called straight back afterwards and left a message with the receptionist. And then it got to like 5 to 5, and I called again, and once again just couldn't get through to a nurse. And then it was clear that I would have to wait the next day for my result, and I was so annoyed. I was really, really annoyed. I was so angry. The next morning I called in the morning and I said, like, I need to know now. I'm in a day full of meetings. Like, I need to know my result.
Congratulations. The result has come back positive today.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. How are you feeling?
Just shocked. I don't even know what to say.
Well, I can assure you that it's a very strong result.
Yes.
Yeah, because normally at this stage, what we look for is a result of 200 or higher. That's the HCG level that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. Whereas your result has come back at 2,498. So it is a very strong result.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Excellent. Yeah. Very, very exciting. At this stage, we say that you're kind of between 4 and 5 weeks. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, baby.
It worked. Wow, it's so like strong, positive.
You can't believe it happened.
No. You have to let it sink in.
Yeah. Yes.
Yay!
Yes, babe.
Today is the 24th of April and we are going to Joe's 7-week scan. Is it 7?
I think so.
So this is the first time we're seeing the doctor after the test results. So it feels a bit different walking to this doctor this morning.
How do you feel?
How do I feel? Excited, but I think it hasn't really sunk in yet.
I'm nervous and excited.
Nervous, yeah. I think it's just natural that we're just always nervous going to see the doctor. You can see the heartbeat already?
Yes.
Oh wow.
That's so cool.
That's the baby's head. It would be the baby's head.
Oh my god.
So it's...
That's the baby there. This is the yolk sac where the placenta was from.
Wow, so it's really happening.
Looks great, right? Very much.
Wow, so it's happening. Wow. The baby looks okay. I checked the baby, no problem.
Oh wow.
Oh, whoa.
What? Oh my god.
Whoa, it's actually moving and looking at us. Is that the nose there?
Yeah.